You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
Packers Talk.
You're listening to No Huddle Radio on the Packers Talk Radio Network, your home for in-depth and thoughtful Packers analysis. I'm your host, Gil Martin. My co-host is my good friend, Sean Tehan. In addition to this show, I write for the PackersPost.com and Cheesehead TV. Sean was a TV sportscaster in Minnesota. We're here to talk Packers because you're all here for one thing, and that is a love for Green Bay football. Sean, how's it going today? Training camp, we're back.
We're busy, man. We're wheeling and we're dealing, and hey, we're every day into training camp means we're getting close to the start of the regular season. Let's talk about our sponsor, the one that makes this engine go for us, Gil. That's TicketKing.com. That's Wisconsin's own TicketKing.com. Once again, they sponsor our show for over 30 years. They've been providing Packers tickets to Packer fans as well as Bucks, Brewers, and Summerfest tickets. Hey, the Brewers' best record in baseball right now. Go to TheTicketKing.com. That's TheTicketKing.com for tickets for the Brewers and then upcoming Packer games coming up in September, October, November. You can find them on the web once again at TheTicketKing.com or visit their locations in Green Bay or Milwaukee. And remember to support local Wisconsin businesses, and you can watch every episode of No Huddle Radio on Packers Talk Network with Gil and myself on YouTube. While you're here, click on the bell, turn the notifications on, join the discussion, chat with us live. Love to see and talk about the comments coming our way. And Gil, it's finally here. The training camp is here. You know, we are so close to football. We are finally sniffing football. We're getting great snippets of videos from around the league, whether it's the Bears, you know, building up hope like they do every year, whether it's the Browns video guy falling into the water as they unveil a helmet in a very Browns fashion, or the Packers, you know, announcing that they've extended one of their better players going into a contract year, and that's offensive tackle Zach Tom getting a 4-year, $88 million contract. Signing bonus he signed was just north of $30 million, largest ever for an offensive tackle. Gil, this is the Packers' best offensive lineman. He's one of the best in the NFL. He had a lot of All-Pro votes last year. Didn't make the All-Pro team. Was very close. You know, I'll say this, Gil. With that kind of deal, $22 million per year, I think that's a heck of a steal for the Green Bay Packers.
I think this is a win-win because the Packers get to keep his cap hit low, especially this year. They didn't have to pay him as the best right tackle in the NFL, although he is, you know, in the upper tier. And yet the player gets that huge signing bonus, that record-setting signing bonus. So Zach Tom gets all that money up front. I wish someone would pay me $30 million to sign my name somewhere, but you know, it's. I think it's a win-win.
Yeah, it's massive. It's just, and this guy is so good, and it's good that he's getting the money that he's getting now because you know what the Packers, what they like to do, they like to move around these offensive linemen, and there were whispers last year during the offseason that the Packers feel like Zach Tom's a really great offensive tackle, but he could be a Hall of Fame center one day, or even a better player at guard. But he's been so good at right tackle, and there's just only so many legit offensive tackles in the NFL. So it's great that they got this guy locked up because he's just been just a home run 4th-round pick from a few years ago. He's just been an awesome player to have and really one of the better players in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm very happy with this. And look, you lock up your best offensive lineman. You have some flexibility. You know they're going to restructure this in year 3 or 4 because that's what the Packers do. And I just think this is a good deal for both player and team. And I'm relieved that this is done. Cross Zach Tom off the list. There's still some other things we need to accomplish before the season starts.
Yeah, and one of those, obviously, I was just mentioning Zach Tom, where the Packers, there were whispers last year that he could play center. He's locked up now for the future. Now you got Elton Jenkins, who's supposed to move over from left guard to center because of the signing of Aaron Banks, but Elton Jenkins reportedly wanted a reworked contract this offseason, and essentially he did not want to essentially point blank get screwed by the position change because centers don't get paid as much as a guard or a tackle in the NFL. The Packers did place Elton Jenkins on the non-football injury list going into training camp. But Brian Gutekunst, he spoke to the media at the opening of training camp earlier this week, said that Elton is dealing with a back issue, said once he's good to go, he will be on the practice field. Now, Jenkins has been seen with the rehab group at training camp the first couple days, And Gil, we saw the ripple effect that the Elton Jenkins injury had in the playoff game last year, and how important and critical he is to that offensive line. But he's only 2 years into a contract he signed a couple of years ago. The Packers typically don't like to rework contracts at this point in the contract with 2 years remaining. But let me ask you this, Gil, we don't know. We hope it's just a back injury and that he can recover in time for the season. We hope that when he's recovered that he's willing to come back. How long can the Packers manage without Elton Jenkins on their offensive line now?
I would like to make sure he's ready to go for preseason game one. I mean, I don't think he necessarily has to play in preseason game one, but I would like him ready to go. And here's the thing. Do I think Elton Jenkins needs all those reps at center necessarily? No, I think he can handle that, although the more reps he gets, the better. But offensive line, more than any other unit, needs cohesiveness. You need to know what the guy next to you is going to do. You need to have good communication between the center and the two guards and the tackles. The fewer reps you get, the tougher that becomes. So I want Elton Jenkins ready sooner than later.
And we saw Elton Jenkins start one game at center last year in place of Josh Myers in that soaker at Lambeau against the Detroit Lions. It was an ugly game. There were so many mishandled snaps. I don't know if it was just lack of repetition at the position or just the terrible conditions. I mean, it was a bad game for the offense in general. The receivers dropped, 5-6 passes that game easily. Just a sloppy game in general. Elton Jenkins was a big part of that sloppiness at center. And it's just interesting, though. But again, I look at that Philly game, and he was so critical to that offensive line last year because it was just such a domino effect when he left, when he was knocked out of that game with that stinger. It just, the offensive line couldn't find a rhythm. And I'm wearing my Elton Jenkins jersey on the live stream today. I am. I'm supporting my guy. And I do hope the Packers get a contract reworked with him somehow, just to give him some assurance, hey, like this position change isn't going to ding your value. But it's a bit of a complex situation. I hope Brian Gutekunst, I want to take him for his word that it is an injury and that when he's healed, he will be back on the field. But we won't know until we really know.
That's right. That's right. Look, fingers crossed. I think Jenkins is so important. You know, we discussed that Zach Tom is the best offensive lineman. I think Elton Jenkins is the next guy up as far as quality goes. That's the way he's been grading out, and he's been more consistent than most of the other linemen who have played for the Packers over the last few years. I really want to see him back, healthy, and ready to go.
When's the latest you want to see when's the latest you want to see Elton Jenkins in camp by until it becomes like a bit of a oh man, like we could be in trouble in week one right away?
I don't want to go past the first preseason game. After the first preseason game, then I'll start to worry.
So we got a few weeks. So I agree with you on that. So speedy recovery to Elton Jenkins. Hopefully he gets better and hopefully the contract situation gets figured out. So but the thing is, it's like the bright side is we were talking off air just before coming on, Gil, where it's like it could be like the Cincinnati Bengals where Trey Hendrickson, there's obviously a standoff between him and the organization. Hendrickson's going into the final year of his contract, and he's definitely underpaid for the quality player he is, and I'm hoping he's a Green Bay Packer somehow. I don't think it's going to happen, but he's in Florida right now. The Cincinnati Bengals play in Ohio. And he's in Florida right now. He's not even at camp. So Elton Jenkins being in the building and being present, at least with the rehab group and working on the side, that's a good sign in general. I mean, Terry McLaurin is holding out at Washington camp right now, but he's actually there. He's there. Like he's physically at Washington camp, but he's just not within the parameters. He's not practicing with the team right now. So it could be a lot worse.
It could be, and at least it seems there's some cooperation right now between Jenkins camp and the front office. So let's hope that continues and that this gets resolved.
Now, if Elton Jenkins, if it doesn't get resolved, it could change some things on the opening day roster, on the initial 53-man roster. But it's the opening of training camp, Gil. So, of course, we're going to look into our crystal balls, which we definitely do not have. And we are going to make our initial 53-man roster predictions. And it's always funny how you look at, if you have a good feel for you'd say probably 70-75% of the roster, right, going into the season. But it's that 25 to 30% where you're just like, okay, it could go one way or another, and you just don't know what the Packers are thinking. I mean, last year we didn't think Malik Willis would be the backup quarterback. We had no idea who the backup
He
quarterback
wasn't
was
on the
gonna be.
team at the start of training camp. So, yeah.
Correct. He was in Tennessee Titans camp, and now he's with the Green Bay Packers and did very well in a backup role last season. So the roster is ever evolving. It's ever changing. It could be so different. I mean, last year, remember, too, Greg Joseph and Anders Carlson were competing for the kicking job. Then went to Braden Narvison, the Narv dog, but he only held that job for, 6 weeks, and then Brandon McManus takes over. But let's start at the kicker position, at the specialist position. Gil, you and I match right here. Name the specialists who we think are going to make the team this year.
I think it's pretty clear. I don't think there's any real competition here for kicker, punter, or long snapper. There's one long snapper in camp. So it's Brandon McManus, Daniel Whelan, and Matt Orzech.
I'm with you. Daniel Whelan's a darn good punter. Matt Orzech, I mean, I feel like you could upgrade at long snapper potentially, but he gets the job done. And Brandon McManus, man, that guy missed one field goal, and it was in that soaker against Detroit last year at Lambeau Field. And I remember, Gil, you remember me telling you, I was sitting right behind the goalpost, and that thing was going right through the uprights, and then the wind just took it over. He would have had a perfect season kicking if it wasn't for that sloppy game at Lambeau that year. So I'm with you on that. Let's go to the quarterback spot, obviously, too. A little bit more stability at the quarterback spot, especially at the backup quarterback spot. Gil, obviously, we both have Jordan Love and Malik Willis making this team.
Yeah, I don't think there's any controversy. The big question will be who the third quarterback is going to be, and that's most likely going to be on the practice squad. But barring injury, it's Jordan Love and Malik Willis, and I'm very pleased. I think that's a great 1-2 punch at quarterback.
I'm intrigued to see that third quarterback battle. Who's going to essentially get that practice squad spot between Sean Clifford and Taylor Elgersma, the Canadian cannon, essentially. And I want to see that guy throw it around a little bit against an NFL defense. Granted, it's going to be preseason football, but that's going to be fun to watch. I think Malik Willis's job is very safe at the number 2 spot, and Jordan Love obviously is the guy moving forward. Now, running back, Gil, we differentiate a little bit here. We're not really in line. Tell us which running backs are going to make the initial 53-man roster. And again, I say initial. It's never the final 53-man roster because the roster is ever evolving. Who's going to make the initial 53-man roster for the Green Bay Packers coming up at the end of August?
Well, look, I think we could agree Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd are pretty much locks as long as they're healthy.
Yep.
And then it just becomes a question in my mind of Emmanuel Wilson or Chris Brooks. I wanted both of them, but I didn't have enough space.
Mm-hmm.
So I went with Wilson, but I really want to find a way to keep both of them on the team.
It's funny because we were talking off air how essentially if this was a 54-man roster, right, Chris Brooks should be on this roster.
Yes.
But it doesn't work that way. And you hope if that does shake out that way, Gil, you hope that they can bring Chris Brooks back to the practice squad. But I feel like he just showed where he's a willing pass protector. He's solid in special teams. He's not going to be your bell cow back, but he has a good feel for the game, and he's willing to get dirty. And I feel like there's going to be a team that's going to claim him off waivers if he does reach that point. Now, with me, I think the Packers are keeping 4 running backs. And I do think they're going to keep Chris Brooks because I really think that this group is solid. And you don't know what Marshawn Lloyd's health, again, where it sounds like he's all clear and everything. But, man, that guy, head, shoulders, knees, and toes, everything was just beat up last year for Marshawn Lloyd. Obviously, you know what you got in Josh Jacobs. Emmanuel Wilson has only gotten better. Yes. And obviously, when he made the team as an undrafted free agent out of camp a couple of years ago, they saw something in him, and he's only gotten better. I have a hard time believing that he's not going to make this roster, but you never know. We've seen it before where a guy kind of reaches the point of their highest point, essentially. They reach their top of their game. Out. And then they just max out and they're done. So I think, though, it's going to be 4 running backs.
Okay. All right. I wanted to keep 4, but I didn't have room.
Yeah, that's fair. And the wide receiver spot now, we both are in line here, Gil. I'm going to have you read it off. We both have 6 wide receivers making this roster.
Right. And that keeps in mind that Christian Watson ends up starting the season on the PUP list.
Correct.
And how that's going to change when he's ready to play, we don't know. But you go with Romeo Doubs, you go with Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, you have the 2 draft picks in Savion Williams and Matthew Golden. And then I think Malik Heath survives, but it's going to be – there's a lot of competition here.
Yeah, and they just signed a rookie receiver, an undrafted rookie, in Will Shepherd. They like Julian Hicks was a guy who was on the practice squad last year. A guy obviously they want to keep in the building. So who knows if they get in there? But obviously Matthew Golden and Savion Williams, I think they are safe for sure. Jaden Reed is safe for sure. But Romeo Doubs, you never know if he comes up in trade talks, because that's a legit possibility, Gil, I think. And he's going into a contract year, and there were some issues last year with how he wasn't happy with how much volume he was getting. Dontavian Wicks is, I think, so much talent. I think he has a lot of talent, but if he just can't catch the ball, if he doesn't get better, that could be a potential surprise cut. I don't think it will be, but don't be surprised that happens. And then Christian Watson, obviously, when Brian Gutekunst mentioned where he's not going to practice fully coming off the ACL tear this training camp, he's destined for the PUP list to start the season. So that just makes too much sense.
Yeah, it does. Look, I love the talent here, but we need more consistency from the guys on the roster, and how they play in camp, and possibly for some of the guys further down the depth chart, how they play in preseason will be influential. And, you talked about the possibility of a Romeo Doubs trade. That only happens if Matthew Golden and Savion Williams look like they're ready to contribute as rookies and play a substantial role. So, Dobbs's future may depend on how other people are doing in training camp.
Yeah, and Malik Heath, I don't know why you gave I don't know your reasoning for giving Malik Heath the edge in this group for making the roster too, but me, it's just like that dude plays his butt off every snap. He is an absolute dog on the outside, especially in the run game, where he's a willing blocker as a receiver, which the Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay offenses, you've got to be willing to block as a wide receiver if you want to be on the field. So I think that guy's nasty mentality, it's just that's going to earn him a spot for sure. But again, we never know. You never know what's going to happen. Someone could rise to the occasion, and injuries could happen, knock on wood. So we'll see what happens. Now, tight end group, Gil, we were identical here. We had Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave, and Ben Sims. It's funny. It's like this has been the group now. We're projecting for the third straight year, and it's a solid group. Even though it's not the biggest group, I think it's a solid bunch that you have here at tight end on paper.
Yeah, and look, Tucker Kraft, I still think he has Pro Bowl potential this year if he can take it to the next level. Musgrave has got to stay healthy. That's the one thing that's hurt him, and I really want to see the two of them, Kraft and Musgrave, healthy and on the field at the same time for some formations and some plays. I think Matt LaFleur can get very creative with those two guys. And then, there's some good depth for that third spot. I think Sims edges out Fitzpatrick, but there's some other guys as well. I wouldn't be surprised if there are possibly as many as two tight ends on the practice squad.
Yeah, and last year, I believe Messiah Swinson, he had time in the practice squad as well. John Fitzpatrick, obviously, was another former Georgia Bulldog who was carrying the G at the NFL level too. So, and carrying the G in the college level as well. But he's a guy who spent time on the roster last year because of the Musgrave injury. So you can't count him out. But I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of tight ends behind these three specifically who will probably be practice squad guys. It just makes a lot of sense. And it sounds like, hey, Tucker Kraft, man, it sounds like he's getting the ball quite a bit to open up training camp, and we're just hearing reports and everything like that. Who knows? Maybe he breaks some tight end records in Packer franchise history this year.
We have never had a 1,000-yard receiver in a season at tight end. Maybe it changes.
Not even 900 yards. It's just crazy. So maybe Tucker Kraft may defy that. He may change it up a little bit in the record books. Gil, offensive line, you and I, slightly different. I had 4 running backs making the initial 53-man roster. You had 3 running backs. You had 1 more offensive lineman than I did making the initial 53-man roster. Give us your 10 offensive linemen who are going to make it on the Packers' initial 53.
Okay, you start with Rasheed Walker, who I think will probably win that left tackle job. Then you have Banks at left guard. You have Elton Jenkins, when the back is better, at center. And then you have Sean Ryan or Jordan Morgan, but they'll both make the team, and Zach Tom. Those are your top 6, for lack of a better way to put it. And then there's the battle for the backups. So Anthony Belton, I think, is a lock. Obviously, if he's healthy, he's going to be on the roster. And then to me, it's Travis Glover, Jacob Monk, and then the one that we probably differ on is John Williams, who I think will make the final 53, but if he doesn't, they'll try to sneak him onto the practice squad.
Yeah, and for me, Gil, it's slightly different, actually. You know, I had 9 guys making it to the roster, and I think they like Kadeem Telford a lot.
They do.
And so with I had 9 guys making it, and I had Kadeem Telford instead of Travis Glover, and then I have John Williams possibly going to the PUP or IR. He just, it seems like every year there's always an offensive lineman or two who the Packers put on the IR just to have them in the building. And I feel like John Williams, the 7th round rookie out of Cincinnati, it just feels like where it's like they're going to go easy with this guy. They're going to put him in the lab, kind of what they did with Yosh Nijman before, kind of what they've been doing with Kadeem Telford as well. They've done this in the past, and I feel like they're going to do this with a guy like John Williams, who's a project, and they're just going to essentially be like, yep, we're not going to play during the regular season. You're still going to get paid, but you're going to be a part of the roster, but you're not going to be on the actual 53-man roster. It just feels like it's destined where John Williams is going to end up on PUP or IR, and he hasn't been practicing at all to start training camp. Right. So it's off to it's looking like a solid prediction on my end, but I don't know. Travis Glover, the amount he struggled last year in Philadelphia in that playoff game, I know it was the Eagles. They won the Super Bowl. Their pass rush was so dynamite, but it seemed like unless he gets a lot better in training camp, it just seemed like he was kind of a lost cause in that game last year.
He didn't look good, but I'm not ready to write him off entirely just yet. And, you know, how he looks in camp this year will go a long way in determining his future. I think you may be right about the redshirt year for Williams, but we'll see. Obviously, if he doesn't get healthy, the decision is easy.
I mean, I remember they put Luke Tenuta on the season-ending IR before the season started a few years ago, too. So it just seems like they always do that with one offensive lineman. John Williams just seems like the prime candidate. Let's go to defense now, Gil. You and I both have 5 defensive tackles making the initial 53-man roster. I'll rattle them off real quick. That's Kenny Clark, Devontae White, Carl Brooks, Warren Brinson, and Nazir Stackhouse. I almost said steakhouse. I'm getting hungry. But something that you may, if you're listening or watching, you may notice Colby Wooden's not on this list. And Gil, you and I are thinking the same thing. We don't think he makes this team this year.
I don't think so. I think they will go and keep both of the Georgia boys. Brinson, the late round pick, Stackhouse, the undrafted free agent. So that'll keep the undrafted free agent thing going. But look, Wooden has to take a step forward. I think he was a little disappointing last year, and I'm not sure they have a role for him as a smaller guy. They need someone to replace TJ Slayton to fill that nose tackle, occupy multiple blockers and stand your ground kind of a guy who's only going to be on the field in obvious running situations. I just don't see – it's a numbers game, and I don't see room for Wooden at this point.
And even though Stackhouse is an undrafted free agent rookie, he's a big boy. He's wide. That's your guy who's going to possibly fill the nose tackle role. And we'll really see if he's ready for the NFL level in preseason and in camp and everything like that. But we were talking about it when they made the undrafted free agent signings back in April and May, where Nazir Stackhouse seemed like he was primed to make this team. And it just made a lot of sense. And Warren Brinson, I mean, even though he's a 6th-round rookie, he's a Georgia guy. They love their draft picks. I just think, this is the 5. It makes sense. And I think Colby Wooden's on the outside looking in unless he shows a significant step in his game. Yep. Defensive end, Gil, you and I differ a little differently here. I'll read off my list first, because you've been going first and you've been hogging the attention to start. No, I'm just kidding. We're all good. Everything's good here. Everything's good here on the airwaves. But I have 5 defensive ends making this roster. And the 5 I have are Rashawn Gary, Kingsley Enagbare, Lucas Van Ness, Brenton Cox Jr., and rookie Barron Sorrell. And I have Colin Oliver being on the PUP because Colin Oliver isn't practicing right now. Brian Gutekunst did talk about, or I believe it was Matt LaFleur. Someone talked about earlier this week that Colin Oliver is dealing with an injury issue that's going to keep him out of camp for a bit. I feel like that he's destined for the PUP list to start the season.
It very well may be, but if he's not, I think he will make this team. So I went with 6, and I included Oliver on my list, going with 6 defensive ends. But we have the same 6 guys. It's just a question of where Oliver ends up.
And I think it's just a matter of like the Packers, if they put a guy like Colin Oliver on the PUP list, Christian Watson's going to be on the PUP list most likely to start the season, where I could just see them doing that just to create more opportunities for other guys who they really like to, and they get their kind of moment in the sun to really take advantage of a situation. Let's move on to linebacker, Gil. You and I were exactly the same. We have Edgerrin Cooper, Quay Walker, Isaiah McDuffie, Tyron Hopper, and newcomer Isaiah Simmons. It's a good-looking group right there, Gil, and I think it's hard to argue with this. Christian Welch, the Wisconsin native, he's back in camp this year. He's a guy who had a really great preseason last year, was cut at the end of preseason, but it's just I think the Isaiah Simmons acquisition just leaves Christian Welch on the outside looking in.
If they could stash him on the practice squad, I would not be surprised if he stays in town. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's elevated for the maximum 3 games because of what he can do on special teams. But this is, in my mind, the best linebacker group on paper that the Packers have had in a long time.
I agree. I definitely agree. I hope Tyron Hopper, I hope that they find something in him, because I feel like there's talent there, but there was a lot of learning that he had to do on the mental side of the game. But I feel like there's some good talent there, but Simmons is going to be great competition for Isaiah McDuffie, and McDuffie's a guy you can rely on to fill a role if need be. I don't want him starting every game. I really don't. It's nothing against Isaiah McDuffie, but I just want him in that rotational linebacker role. I think that would best suit him. And then Cooper, we know what Edgerrin Cooper could be, what he has been so far. And Quay Walker, he's only gotten better, and the coaches love him too. And the front office, Brian Cook has been adamant that they want to get an extension done with Quay Walker too. So he's going to be around for a bit. Quarterback group, Gil, you and I, a little bit different here. You name your 5 corners who you think are going to make the roster.
Well, I think, Keyshawn Nixon, Nate Hobbs, and Carrington Valentine are kind of a given. I mean, that's the big 3, right? I mean, and then I went with Kalen King and Kamal Haddon, but those last 2 spots are wide open.
Yeah, when I was looking at this, I'm just like, holy smokes, this is it's like after those top 3 corners, it's like it's a lot of question marks.
Yep.
So it's a lot of opportunities for the guys they have in camp. Now, I was the same with you for 4 of these guys. I have Hobbs, Nixon, Valentine obviously making the roster. I do have Kalen King making the roster, having that redshirt season with the Packers. This is a former star at the college level, Penn State, was expected to be a first-round pick, dropped all the way to the end of round 7. Maybe the Packers have some in there. Kamal Haddon was a guy I almost put in my group here, Gil.
Okay.
Almost did, because supposedly the coaches, a lot of teammates have been raving about Kamal Haddon's play from minicamp and off-season work and everything like that. But I have 6 corners making the roster, the initial 53-man roster, because I have 5 defensive ends. So that's where the trade-off is. That's where the numbers differ. And the other 2 I have outside of Nate Hobbs, Keyshawn Nixon, Carrington Valentine, and Kalen King are rookie 7th-rounder Micah Robinson. Again, just going with, I think the Packers love their draft picks. I think Micah Robinson's going to make this team. And then I have new corner Bo Melton making the team.
I would love it.
And I would love to see it. I really do. Obviously, the Packers, that's been one of the big stories this weekend. We meant to touch on it. We wanted to touch on it earlier, but we figured we'd touch on it now during the initial 53-man roster predictions, where Bo Melton is making a big move. He's switching positions. It's a logjam at wide receiver. He's probably not going to make the team at wide receiver, but they love him on special teams. He's a guy who knows the offense, and I feel like he'd be a solid depth piece at corner. He's a solid depth piece at receiver if you need him, and he could play special teams, where I feel like the Packers keep 6 corners because I really think they want Bo Melton to make this team. And that's why I had Bo Melton making the cut here. It'd be very interesting. It'd be very cool. But I think it's definitely going to happen, just because as the 6th corner, you're not really going to see the field on defense, but you're going to see a lot of time on special teams, and he could fill multiple roles if need be, potentially.
I would love to see it. I'm a big Bo Melton fan. It's just a hard transition to make. And he's got natural athletic ability, but he's competing against guys who have been doing this for so long, consistently, year after year after year. I'm rooting for him. I think they'll stash him on the practice squad if he doesn't make the 53, assuming nobody else claims him. But it's not easy. It is not easy to make that transition.
And if we're going by the numbers too overall, I mean, and we'll wrap up real quick with the safety group, but you and I both have, I believe, 26 defensive players, 24 offensive players, and 3 specialists. And I essentially was saying, like, I think they keep more defense because Bo Melton could play offense if need be in a pinch. He could.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, so that was just my train of thought. I'm rooting for it big time, and that's gonna preseason's gonna be fun, man. It's just gonna be fun to have football back, but there's gonna be so many guys I'm just really gonna be zeroed in on. I was like, when Bo Melton's playing defense, people are gonna be tuning in. I mean, they're gonna be tuned in just to see, it's like, can this guy really make this switch at this point in his career? You know, it's like, it's going to be a very interesting experiment to watch live. And just to wrap up real quick, the safety group, Gil, you and I were identical. 5 safeties making the team: Xavier McKinney, Evan Williams, Javon Bullard, Zane Anderson, and Katan Oladapo. They invested a lot in that safety group last season, going into last season. And I think they returned pretty much everyone from that group last year.
Yeah, see, Bullard is one of the reasons I don't think they'll keep 6 corners, because he can also be the slot guy. And that's the reason I held it, at 5 cornerbacks in my final tally, because they love that versatility and Bullard gives it to you. But again, I would really love to see Bo Melton find a way onto this team.
Yeah, and the big thing, though, too, when you're talking end of roster guys, it really does come down to special teams. And if they love Bo Melton on special teams as much as they say, I think he makes this team just because of his ability to play special teams. So, yeah, there you have it. So, again, 24 offensive players, 26 defensive players, 3 specialists, making mine and Gil's initial 53-man rosters. Some notables missing the cut on both of our ends include defensive tackle Colby Wooden, defensive end Aaron Mosby, who was a surprise addition to the 53-man roster a season ago. He surprisingly made it after having a great training camp. Linebacker Jamin Johnson, who is a highly regarded undrafted free agent signing. Linebacker Christian Welch. Tight end John Fitzpatrick, who was on the 53-man roster last year. Veteran wide receiver Mecole Hardman. Numbers game right there. So there's going to be a lot of, I just listed all those names, Gil, and like, I feel like a lot of those guys may end up on a 53-man roster elsewhere if they don't end up on the Packers 53.
And I think injuries will allow some of them to probably ultimately make the Packers 53. You don't know who's going to go down for how long and how the team is going to play it with the IR, but I'm hoping the injuries are kept to a minimum.
Let's hope. I mean, you're already hearing stories from around the league of guys getting carted off and everything, and you don't want that this time of year. You hope it doesn't come to your team, but you just gotta go along with the beat of the drum, man. You just gotta go with whatever cards you're dealt. You just gotta play them. Gil, before we wrap up with some trivia and just wrap up this week's episode, obviously busy time. Training camp is here. It's arrived. A lot coming up on Packers Post at cheeseheadtv.com. What do you got cooking online?
I did do an article on Bo Melton's position change over at the Packers Post. Also took a look at the offensive line and whether or not they can be better this year than a year ago. And then over at Cheesehead, I took a look at 3 of the more interesting position battles that are going on in training camp and who I think will win them.
Only 3 position battles? Man, I feel like you're limiting yourself. I feel like there's multiple position battles right now.
Yeah, but the article can only be so long.
That's true. You got rules. Like, what I'm just thinking Big Lebowski. There are rules here, man. This isn't Vietnam, so just all I hear is Walter Sobchak yelling that over the line. Anyways, I digress. Gil, you ready for some trivia?
Yeah, I'm in trouble. I could tell already. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Just don't upset the football gods. That's all. But there are going to be, again, like Gil was mentioning, some great position battles in training camp over the next month. The wide receiver battle, it's one to focus on this summer. And someone who may be on the outside looking in by the time roster cutdown day rolls around could be veteran wide receiver and prior Super Bowl champion Mecole Hardman. Hardman's only 27 years old, but he is the old man in the Packers wide receiver room, believe it or not. Now, Gil, not including Devontae Adams, when was the last time a Packers wide receiver aged 27 or older at the end of training camp made the Packers' initial 53-man roster?
Wow.
And it's pretty recent for the most part.
Yeah, I would think it would be. And Randall Cobb.
Yep, and there is one more. There is one more guy too, if you can get it. A little bonus trivia. But Randall Cobb is one of them. And do you know the season? Obviously.
Okay.
Rodgers last year starting.
What was that?
Rodgers last year in Green Bay.
Yeah, which was not a good year.
No. Any guesses on the other person who made it, who was age 27 or older by the end of training camp, who made it from the receiver group?
Kind of blanking out at this moment.
It's easy to blank out because his tenure wasn't very memorable. But Randall Cobb was one. He was 32 at the end of training camp in 2022. And Sammy Watkins.
Yeah.
29 at the end of 2022. He was only here for a season. He wasn't even here for a full season. He was off the team by later in the season, but it was the first year in 2022 after Devontae left for the Raiders. That season, the receiver room included rookies and current Packers, Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs. Allen Lazard was also on the team, but he was 26 years old at the end of camp. And then veterans Cobb and Watkins, they were the old vets of the group. The Packers moved on from Cobb, Watkins, and Lazard after the 2022 season. And in case you're wondering, the next oldest member of the Packers wide receiver group today, it's Christian Watson and Bo Melton, who are both 26 years old. Roster hopeful Julian Hicks, he is also 26 years old. So, I mean, the Packers, they've been the youngest team in the NFL the last 2 years, and they definitely stay young in the wide receiver room. That's obviously a big point of emphasis, but you just hope that you can find one receiver who just rises above and, it just becomes the cream of the crop, and they're here beyond the rookie contracts moving forward.
Yeah, you got to have at least one, right? Who gets beyond that rookie contract. Otherwise, you're probably doing something wrong. So, let's hope that is indeed the case. Well, that is going to do it for us today. We're right back here next week. Follow us on Twitter @Packers. On all things Packers, or to ask us questions, or you can email us at gbpackerssean@gmail.com. Make sure you subscribe to Packers Talk on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Big thanks to PackersTalk.com for powering our show, and thank you for listening. Until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.